G'day and welcome back. Today we're going to be taking a look at the continuation of the Mind the Line series here, and we're going to be talking about the German battleships here, or the Preussen line. And, well, this line is, well, let's just say sometimes the guns are a little bit inconsistent at times, to say the least. That's a broadside Omaha here, and, well, the first ship we're going to take a look at here is going to be the Tier 5 battleship, the Konig. And, well, you can already see some of the traits of these guns. They're inconsistent. But when they do hit, they hit hard. This ship is a good example of what you're going to be getting into with the line, and as suggested to me, this was the next line I should cover in this series, so if you do want to suggest any more lines for me to continue going down, I do plan to do all of the lines at some point in the future. Do drop them in the comments below. Now, this ship here is quite an enjoyable Tier 5 battleship for me. It was one of the first ones I actually obtained when I was grinding down through the line, and, well, it's just a solid Tier 5 battleship. It has, you got 10 of these punchy guns. Yes, the dispersion is kind of whack, unfortunately, but that's just German battleships for you in a nutshell. You've got some decent secondaries as well, and it's just a nice battleship to be playing overall. I did actually enjoy my experience with the ship. Unfortunately, though, I don't enjoy it when it's being up-tiered, but hey, that's going to be the case with all of your Tier 5 through the 7 ships when you get into an up-tier, unfortunately. But this ship, I really do enjoy it. I think it's actually quite a nice experience, especially for newer players. You do get to have some secondaries, especially if you start building into them, and, well, it's just a good precursor to what you're going to experience going down the line if you do enjoy this kind of a playstyle. So for me, if I had to rate the Konig out of 10, I'd probably be giving this ship a 6 out of 10. It's a decent ship, it does some things nicely, got a bit of speed, guns hit hard, and, well, it's a bit of fun at times. So, yeah, that's the Konig there, the Tier 5 German battleship. Let's start moving on to talking about the next ship in the line, the Tier 6. Now, the Tier 6 ship here is gonna be the Bayern, and the Bayern for me was one of my first loves of Tier 6. I really enjoyed playing this ship. You got 8 of these punchy guns, and, well, when you do hit your opponents, they obviously, as I've said before, they do hit hard. Now, this ship, I've had some very good experiences with this ship ever since I first got it, and it's a very solid, very well-rounded overall Tier 6 battleship, in my opinion. Yes, unfortunately, you do have a lower number of guns overall compared to something like, say, the New Mexico or even the Fuso. You don't have a huge amount of guns. However, they do hit kind of hard, and you do have these German secondaries as well. One of the benefits, obviously, behind the German secondaries is the fact that German guns, they have quarter pen HE, which means instead of dividing your caliber of gun and divided by 6 to get your HE penetration like on majority of other ships in the game, you only divide it by 4 for German battleships, and that actually enables you to pen quite a fair bit of armor with the HE shells, and you do quite a sizable chunk of damage. Now, this thing is kind of rough and up tiers, but if you find yourself in a particular situation, you find a broadside of an enemy cruiser, you can smash them very hard. Goodbye, Mr. Cheshire there, and it is quite an enjoyable experience. You've got to try and find those situations, hold yourself back a little bit before really pushing into those kind of opening scenarios, and once you do manage to push yourself in there, you're going to be in for a very fun time. Bayern is definitely a ship I would recommend to people, and I would be giving this ship a 6 out of 10 for people to be picking up and hopefully grinding down towards the German battleships. Now we move on to arguably the most unique battleship in this line, the Tier 7 Gneisenau. Now, apologies if I've said that incorrectly, but this thing is, this thing is a fair bit of fun. What makes this thing unique from the rest of the German battleships in this line? Well, for a start, you get access to torpedoes. You get 3 on each side, and these torpedoes are actually really quite useful, especially when you're going into those brawling scenarios. This ship loves to get up close, as you do with all the other ships in the line. Got some fantastic secondaries, you've got a very good amount of speed actually, you're actually quite quick in this ship, and those torpedoes are very useful as well for, well, getting in there and dealing some amount of damage to your opponents. I love the Gneisenau. Now, the biggest issue with this ship though, unfortunately, is, once again, you've got German dispersion, which is just not great. It is inconsistent as all hell. But the biggest thing that holds it back in that regard is you've only got 6 guns. Now, it doesn't matter so much on the Scharnhorst, for example, where you have a lower caliber of gun. However, you do have 9 guns in total, and I think slightly better dispersion. However, the sister ship here with the Gneisenau, you've got the hypothetical reefer that she was meant to be equipped with these large guns, but only 6 of them does mean the accuracy is not great. It really is not great. I love this ship though. This thing is a lot of fun to be just blitzing around the map, and one of my favorite early memories playing this ship is getting into divisions with people and just going up full Gneisenau, Scharnhorst divisions, and you can do it these days, especially with the introduction of the Prince Heinrich. Just a triple German battleship division, and if you manage to get a top tier game like this, it is brutal to say the least for your opponents. This thing's a lot of fun, and it is a joy to come and play this down at tier 7 at times. Just gotta watch out for the matchmaking though, because if you do get up tiered to, say, tiers 8 and 9, it's a bit more rough to say the least. But this thing, you can definitely make it work, especially because of how quick it is. The guns are punchy, you can get your secondaries working, you're gonna be laughing. This ship, for me, absolutely gets a 7 out of 10 in my personal rating, because I think people will enjoy it, especially once you start getting a bit of a secondary build working. So, that's the Gneisenau for you. The next ship in the line is arguably my favorite, if not tied favorite in the line. This is the Bismarck. And people should need no introduction for what this ship is. This thing finally gets access to the incredible German Hydro, and well, this thing's a lot of fun. The secondaries on this thing are pretty ridiculous, they're amazing. You've got the German Hydros, which helps a lot with pushing in. Stepping up from the Gneisenau, you actually get that 4th turret there, so you actually have 8 guns, so consistency up a little bit, still got that kind of poorer German dispersion, but this thing, when it hits, obviously it does hit quite hard, but the best thing has got to be these secondaries. Being able to go forward, find your opponents, lock them on, and just let the secondaries work, it is fun. And one of the best things is, secondaries, you can kind of hide and smoke like this as well, so there's North Carolina here, for example, he can't shoot me because he can't see me. So this ship is a lot of fun to be getting close to your opponents, and if you're in a division with other players, especially trying to work around, say, either smoke screens or even just communicating with your allies and pushing down the flank, this thing is brutal. You've got the German turtleback, which means you're actually really quite difficult to citadel at close ranges, which is ideally where you want to be. Now, in saying that, be very, very careful. You do not want to be getting yourself, well, too close, in situations where you might get torpedoed against other battleships. For example, the sister ship, the Tirpitz, she's got access to torpedoes. However, here the Bismarck does not actually get torpedoes, so you just got to watch out for any ships like that in a yellow situation. But this thing is so much fun. You can literally get up close. You can face tank your opponents. The guns, when they well, if you're managing to go through your opponents, they will hit quite hard. In saying that, they're not the largest caliber of guns here at tier 8, because they are the same guns you've been using throughout the past couple of tiers, but they still do hurt plenty hard. Still though, ideally you're wanting to be building for the secondaries, and you can actually start building out to some quite decent ranges with the secondaries, provided you get a full secondary build going. On my Bismarck here, I've got a full secondary build at the moment, and you can see I'm reaching 11.5 kilometer secondary range, so getting a close quarters expert award from 11.5 kilometers away is pretty funny to me. So this thing, absolutely a lot of fun. You do have a fair bit of speed with this thing. You just got to watch out, especially because your superstructure is kind of stacked. There is a lot of stuff there for people to be penetrating, and you don't want to be showing a lot of broadside, because whilst you might not get citadel very regularly at all with this thing, showing a lot of broadside is not advisable, because, well, you don't really want to be eating full pins that are going to do chunks of damage to you, even if they're not citadels. This thing in a down tier is absolutely monstrous, and I can go really aggressively here because I don't need to worry too much about torpedoes, because I've got the fantastic German Hydro. I can push into these opponents here. They're going to be struggling to do stuff to me. I can look at them, I can laugh, and just deal a huge amount of damage to them. This thing is great in that regard, but this thing also works quite well in a kind of a bit more of a defensive manner. So, if you need to just sit there and you need to hold a flank and you let your enemies push in, well, they're going to be pushing into these German secondaries, and that's kind of brutal to be dealing with. This thing is just so much fun. It is definitely a recommended ship to get. And a nice thing as well with this ship is you actually get access to plenty of camouflages for this if you're so inclined. There's a couple of collections out, obviously the Hunt for Bismarck one, which is the collection. This is the collection camo that I'm sporting at the moment. There is another alternative camo for that is available as well, but this thing is great. I really, really love the Bismarck. I don't know how to say too much more than this. I've had this ship requested several times on Twitch, and most of the time I've enjoyed myself in this ship. Yes, you do have to watch out for stuff like enemy carriers. You do have to watch out for tier 9s and 10s because, well, being bottom tier and you go up against higher tier stuff, that's always a bit of a challenge. But if you manage to get yourself into a situation where you can make the ship work, you're going to be doing very, very... And this thing is great fun. Like, this is really one of the pinnacles of the entire line. Especially if you were missing some of that consistency from something like the Gneisenau, getting access to this fourth gun turret does make life a little bit better. The secondaries are fantastic, as you can see here. Like, yeah, I've just been farming this Bismarck the entire time. And, well, we're already, like, well over 150 secondary main battery hits against this dude. And he's not going to be lasting too long. Yes, he's bowing to us, so we've got a lot of secondaries working against him, just farming him down. The quarter pen H, he does wonders here, managing to penetrate, like, a lot more of his armor. And, well, yeah, this thing is great. It really, really is a fun ship. And, well, look, for example, this Cleveland here, you don't exactly want to be reversing broadside out in front of, well, any battleship to begin with, but Bismarck, you kind of can get away with it because of the poor dispersion of this thing. You can see we only got one pen and a lot of overpens, but that's the Bismarck for you in a nutshell. I love this thing. I'm going to give this thing an 8 out of 10 because of just, well, I'm biased. I love this ship. I love secondaries. Herder, they're a lot of fun. 8 out of 10 for me. So let's start talking about the tier 9, the FTG. Now we get to the Frederick the Grosse. I don't know if I've said that correctly. I apologize. I'm just going to call it the FTG because who calls it the Grosse in this day and age? Anyhow, the FTG. This thing, when you're coming from the Bismarck, you get to this thing and you're thinking you're going to get a major upgrade. I am sorry, I am going to disappoint you. You do not get that major upgrade that you are kind of expecting. This thing is... It's a rough ride. Let's put it that way. The guns, if you're using... There's two viable guns, I would say, on this ship. It doesn't help majorly, but you can use either guns. You've got the stock guns and you've got the upgraded guns. The stock guns have got a very, very fast reload. And the top guns, they trade a little bit of that reload for a bit more alpha damage. Now, unfortunately, in this regard, you do not actually gain any overmatch potential, really, between the two guns, despite the increase in caliber. It's not a huge amount. It doesn't cross any particular thresholds, unlike when we step up to Preussen, which does cross an important threshold, and I'll talk about that in a minute. But you can run both guns if you want to, and both do work. Now, playing the FDG, when I was trying to get footage for this one, this was a rough series of games, and this was arguably the best one I had in a string of about 5 to 10 games. So, yeah, it's... You have to play kind of cautious with this ship. You can't just YOLO straight in there. Why? Because stuff like enemy carriers, enemy destroyers and stuff will happily look for you. Now, whilst you do have the fantastic hydro that you just found on the Bismarck, you're a big ship. You're actually gigantic, and you will eat a lot of broadside pens. You will eat a lot of damage to your superstructure, fires galore. This thing does not like taking damage, and that's something you will note when you're going from tier 8, 9, and 10 particularly. These are massive ships. They do not like eating any form of damage whatsoever. Yes, they're not citadels, but you're going to be eating like huge chunks of damage. You've got to watch out for that. However, you still have the fun aspect of the fantastic German secondaries. You still got them here. Now, the issue with the FDG in particular is pushing in doesn't quite work out so well for you because you've got some terrible firing angles on those last two turrets there. It's actually really difficult to get good anglings against your opponents because you have to expose a lot of broadside to be able to shoot them. Now, if you do want to get all of those guns on, great, you can do so, but just be careful about how you're angling and when your enemies are reloading, because, yeah, you can eat a big amount of damage if you do so. This thing is... it's interesting, let's put it that way. I do think this ship works a lot better in a more defensive manner because you do have much better firing angles over the rear of the ship in comparison to when you're pushing in again over the front. But I can understand you don't necessarily want to be reversing into your opponents all the time, but that's where this ship kind of works a lot better in my opinion. You can still do some big damage to your opponents, obviously if they're showcasing broadside or anything like that, as we saw earlier in the game against the Salem. You've got the fantastic German Hydra, so this Karl Johann here, like, yes, he's launched torps at us, I can see him. However, just because you can see the torpedoes doesn't mean you're always able to do something about it. So just keep that in mind, especially when you're pushing into your opponents. So you can see there, we just took a massive strike there from the enemy carrier. Double fire, took off a huge amount of our HP, and that's the biggest issue when it comes to this ship and Preussen, is the fact you just eat so much damage. Even though they're not citadels, there's a lot of damage that you do eat. However, when you're getting at these kind of ranges, you've got all your guns working, dispersion can be somewhat mitigated, as we saw there. Anyways, for the FDG, I'm going to give this one a 5 out of 10 on my rating. That's kind of harsh, especially in comparison to the other ships, but this thing's not a great experience. Actually, you know what? I'm going to lower my rating even further. I'm going to give this a 4 out of 10. Sorry, FDG, but you don't do enough for me. 4 out of 10 on the rating. And lastly, we have the crowning jewel of the line, the Preussen. This thing, unironically, I really enjoy this thing. I don't take it out a huge amount, because I do love a lot of other ships, but this thing, I've had a lot of great games when I've played this out. Now, what's special about this ship in comparison to the rest of the line? So, obviously we had the FDG, we just saw that before. What makes this thing special? And unlike, say, the FDG, the Bismarck, etc., you've got 457mm caliber guns. Why is that important? It means you can overmatch 30mm of armor, which is an important threshold in this game because a lot of heavy cruisers have got 30mm of armor. So being able to overmatch all those ships is really, really important. And it just makes dealing damage so much more easier. Well, so much easier, I should say. Apologies. In addition to that, you've actually got a 21-second reload. Yes, I'm half HP here with Adrenaline Rush, but you've got a blisteringly fast rate of fire. It's almost on par with the Richelieu. Not the Richelieu, I'm sorry, the Republic. The reloads on these guns are absolutely insane, and you can deal a lot of damage to people very, very quickly. Once again, though, you are kind of hampered by the fact that you've got poor German dispersion, so shooting at long range is not the most consistent. However, if you do get some good hits, these guns hit hard. And when I say hit hard, they really hit hard. If I remember correctly, someone correct me in the comments below if I'm wrong, but you can do more, your shells do more damage than the Yamato, which is kind of crazy. These things hurt really hard, especially if you manage to get in there and you manage to get some citadels against your opponents, because that's a huge amount of damage they're not going to be able to recover quickly. This thing, the secondaries are great as well. As you can see, I've managed to get about 12.5 kilometers range on my secondaries, which is the maximum you can get with your secondaries at tier 10. The only other one that can kind of get a bit further is going to be on the Hanover at tier 11, the super ships. But this thing is great. I really, really enjoy playing this ship. Now, once again, as I was mentioning before, this thing does eat quite a fair bit of damage, especially to HE damage, and, well, just raw pens in general, because it is a massive ship. Like, look at the size of this thing. It's gigantic. You don't want to be eating too many fires in this thing, because they will tick down, they will hurt, they will burn you down, and, well, just raw AP pens in general as well. there's a lot of stuff on you to pen. So in that regard, it's got to be careful about how you play the ship. If you manage to play kind of defensively, go stern into your opponents, and let secondaries do the work when they're pushing in, you'll do quite well. You've got the fantastic German Hydro again, and that really does help. Now this Hydro, as I've said before, yes, it does help you obviously spot torpedoes and keep enemy ships detected and everything. You just got to be careful, just because you can see the torpedoes because of the gigantic size of this thing, and obviously that comes with like a larger turning radius and everything, you're not always going to be able to dodge the torpedoes, so you've got to be careful about how you position yourself and where you're going to be on a particular map or anything, or on a flank, and just be keeping in mind where those enemy destroyers might be, because, well, you don't want to be eating a full broadside worth of torpedoes, because it's not a lot of fun. In saying that, how do I rate this ship overall? I think I'm going to give this one a 7 out of 10, and if you're wondering why that's kind of low for me, it's because I think there's a lot better options here at tier 10 in terms of battleships for people to enjoy. For example, I think the Montana is fantastic. However, this thing is I enjoyed playing this thing. It's definitely not a bad pick to be playing, especially in randoms. You just have to be a bit more careful because it can be rough, especially if you get focused by enemy HE spam or enemy carriers. That's where some of the frustration with this ship comes from. In saying that, I really like this ship. It suits my playstyle kind of well, and I hope you enjoyed this video as well. If you want to see a particular line I'm going to cover next, please do let me know down in the comments. Otherwise, I'll be picking a random line, and I'll see if I do another battleship line or if I do something else. Anyhows, that's all I got for today, folks. If you guys enjoyed, please obviously consider subscribing, letting me know if you liked the video or not by hitting the thumbs up button. And, well, if you want to know what the best mods you should be using for World of Warships are, you're going to want to click on this video here.